This is me a year ago, and this is me now. I've been on Mounjaro for a full year now. I've lost 110 pounds, that's 50 kilos, gone through 3-4 wardrobe changes. I'm still dealing with loose skin and some side effects. So is it worth it? Well, let's talk about it. Hi, I'm Gordon, FatOldClimber, and in this video I'm going to take you through my journey on Mounjaro. I'm going to talk about what Mounjaro is, why I started it, how it's been for me, what some of the side effects I've suffered are, dealing with things like loose skin and clothing changes. I'll show you my results and I'll give you what I think, what my recommendations are. Before I start that, I just want to remind you that I'm not a medical professional. I have no pharmaceutical experience. Everything I know about Mounjaro I've learned over the last year having been taking it. None of this is intended as medical advice, and if you take anything from it, it should be to use for your own research, to make your own decisions for you. That being said, this may be a bit of a longer video, but I'll be using chapter marks. If you want to skip on from bits you already know, you can see the chapters in the description. Before I start, if you're thinking about taking Mounjaro or one of the other ones, Wegovy for example, and you haven't yet, if you don't, or if you're thinking of changing suppliers, I use MedExpress in the UK, and if you want to use them, I have a referral code in the description, and in a pinned comment I'll give you an email you can send me and I will give you my referral code. It'll give you £40 off your first order, which is not nothing. Okay, so what is Mounjaro? Mounjaro is one of a few GLP-1s. You have semaglutide or tirzepatide. Semaglutide are Ozempic and Wegovy, and tirzepatide is Mounjaro or Zepbound in the States. The other one that's about there is Retatrut. I can't remember what it's called, it's up here. A lot of people are talking about that, how much more effective, how much cheaper it is. If you're looking at that one, be aware no one is selling that legally. So if you're buying that, you're buying it from someone who's selling something that should just be for research purposes. That doesn't mean you shouldn't make your own decisions, but I wouldn't be doing it. Anyway, so Mounjaro is a GLP-1 medication. Your body naturally produces a hormone GLP-1 after eating, and these medications just give you more of it. It's basically a hormone that tells your brain, hey, I've had enough to eat, you can stop eating now. It also slows down the emptying of your stomach and levels off glucose spikes, meaning you don't have that crash that make you raid the fridge after eating. It has a few other effects, but broadly speaking, that's what it does. Mounjaro increases this a notch, but it also activates another hormone called GIP. When those two hormones are switched on, they kind of boost each other. The result is fewer cravings and food noise, better control over hunger, and for a lot of people, more weight loss. More weight loss than you typically see with single hormone medications like Ozempic or Wegovy. It's not some magic bullet, it's not some magic drug, but it does help your body work the way it's supposed to after you eat, just more effectively. So it doesn't make you lose weight, but it definitely helps you eat in such a way that allows you to lose weight. So why did I start it? I've been fit and healthy for a large percentage of my life, certainly up to my 30s. But in my 30s, probably the simplest explanation is I just got lazy, I got less active, but I ate more, I enjoyed my life, and slowly over a period of maybe 20 years, I put on a ton of weight and I didn't really notice it happening. If you don't understand that phenomenon, look up the boiled frog principle. Fast forward to about 10 years ago when I had almost doubled in weight and I was lethargic, I was inactive, I was not healthy at all. My blood pressure had rocketed, I had all sorts of skin issues. That's when I started running, and not long after that started climbing. I tried almost everything there was to lose weight, and a lot of it worked. I tried intermittent fasting, carnivore diet, just counting calories, and for a short period of time at least, it all had an impact. I managed to lose quite a lot of weight, but it never stuck. Even although I was active, even although I was running and climbing, I just could not keep my weight off. My willpower just always crumbled and it would come back. So I was on this cycle of weight loss, increase, weight loss, increase. Then when COVID struck, it really knocked me for six, and the amount of weight I put on during COVID was outrageous. And I reached my peak during COVID and never really recovered for a few years. Climbing, I would say, was my main motivation for losing weight. If you've ever climbed, you know how much difference it makes if you're heavy. I was strong, obviously, but it was just so much hard work trying to drag my fat ass up the wall. And I really, really wanted to do something, and I tried for a number of years. Around a year ago, just over a year ago, Mounjaro I heard of Mounjaro from a few different sources, and I decided to look into it. I did some research. I was a bit put off by the idea that it basically just suppressed their appetite. I never really had a problem not eating if I was hungry. My real problem was the nighttime fridge raids, or the biscuits or the chocolates. It was the snacks. It was never having to deal with being hungry. So if all it was going to do was suppress my appetite, I thought, this isn't going to work. But having done a lot of research into it, and having looked into the difference between Wegovy and Mounjaro, I decided to give Mounjaro a try. The results were immediate, and I was sold right from week one. And I've been using it ever since. A year since last week. So what was it like for me for the first few months? I took my injection on a Monday at the beginning of November, and nothing really happened in the first day, but by day 2, my world changed. Now, what I should stress is I'm what's considered a hyper-responder. A hyper-responder is defined by the percentage of weight loss over 12 weeks. It's not to do with how much you need to take for it to work, but I am definitely a hyper-responder. Not everyone will get the same results as me. Not everyone will get the same result. Some people, it will take a few weeks for the drug to even start working. Some people, it will work immediately. Some people will have terrible side effects. Some will have none. But I'm definitely a hyper-responder. But what happened for me was my hunger disappeared. By day 2, I just wasn't hungry. By day 2, I realised at 5 o'clock I hadn't eaten, and I wasn't even remotely hungry. I could eat. I was able to eat. Some people find they just can't eat a full portion of food. I could eat. It just wasn't on my radar. So it changed my whole relationship to food. I started eating because I knew I needed nutrients. I started eating more if I was going climbing. But it just wasn't on my mind all the time. But that wasn't the biggest difference. The biggest difference was the lack of food noise. I would be sitting watching the telly of an evening and think, I really fancy some biscuits. And I would literally drive to the spa and buy some biscuits. And while I was there, I'd get some chocolate too. The first I knew the food noise has changed was actually on day 3, I think it was. I was making some coffee and I realised I didn't have any milk. So I went up to my local spa, got some milk, and I had left and was in the car before I realised it hadn't even occurred to me to buy chocolate, which was unheard of. That's been the biggest change for me. The food is not on my mind. I can eat. I do eat smaller portions, but just by choice. And when I need to eat more, I can. But the food noise going has just been a game changer. In my first 3 months, I lost 15% of my body weight, which is just outstanding. I felt so much healthier, so much more active, so much more alive. I had a lot more energy for climbing, for example, as long as I ate. I found in the early stages, if I just went climbing, not having eaten, I would kind of run out of steam quite soon. I was having to drink a lot more water. So what I had to do is, the days I was climbing, I had to make sure I was fueled up. But that was my relationship with food. I was eating for fuel, which was fantastic. Since then, my weight loss was pretty steady for most of this year, with a few glitches, and all of those glitches I could explain away by knowing what I was doing that time, staying with some friends, going on holiday. I knew the weeks that there would be a glitch, and it wasn't a problem. And while it has tapered off recently, I know it's because I'm pretty much at the weight I should be, which I'll talk about a bit more later. I don't think I'd be exaggerating if I said it's been a complete game changer, potentially lifesaver in my case. If you're interested in what I ate, I'm a lazy eater. I ate the same thing pretty much every day for 3-4 months, and every now and then, if I decide I'm having problems, I still go back to that. Every day I had a high protein soup that I can buy in Tesco's, and I had a cottage pie that I could buy from Tesco's. Both things that were actually for 2, but together those were those were under the amount of calories I needed to take that day. On days that I was climbing, I would buy a couple of chicken and bacon sandwiches just to make sure I had enough fuel. But that was it, with few exceptions if I had friends round, if I was going out to dinner. But mainly, at the start of the week, I would just go and buy a week's worth of that and I would work my way through it. That's not going to work for everyone, but it really worked for me, and it was really, really effective. And look, nutritionally, there was nothing wrong with it. I was getting enough protein, I was getting a balance of carbohydrates and fat. It wasn't necessarily a healthy diet, but it was certainly not an unhealthy diet. And it really worked. And although I've dabbled with eating different things, pretty much that's what I do. That's having to change now, but I'll talk about that later. Would I recommend it? Probably not. There's a huge amount of focus you hear about. You have to prioritise protein. You have to make sure you get enough protein. I think that comes from the fact that a lot of the research that's been done into Mounjaro has been with people who are inactive or sedentary. I was active. I was climbing minimum 3 times a week. So I was having to eat, and I was eating enough. It's so easy to eat too little. But I think if you're sedentary, if you're over a certain age, if you're not going to increase your exercise, if you're not going to do any strength training, then yes, you do really need to be a bit more careful about your macros than I was. But I was comfortable. What I was doing was working. I wasn't losing strength. I wasn't losing energy, but I was losing weight. So what about side effects? You read a lot about side effects. A lot of it, I have to say, is scaremongering. The side effects are real. The way GLP-1 works, it affects your gastric processes, so it's not uncommon for people to get gastric issues. At the very, very minimum, nausea, sickness, sometimes diarrhea. There are more serious side effects. If you were looking at it, the right thing to do is look up the side effects, but try and understand that any drug supplier has to put side effects. A lot of people get side effects, but some of them are easily manageable, and most of them, certainly in my case, none of them were as risky as the amount of risk I had being the weight I was from a cardiovascular point of view. So I was totally happy risking the side effects. For me, I've not really had any. Almost instantly, I found that certainly the day of or the day after my injection, I would have a dry mouth. All I needed to do was drink more. And the other thing I've had fairly consistently once I got to a certain dose was constipation. But again, easy to deal with. I just take I try and get a lot more fibre, or I take some Senecot. And again, things get moving, let's put it that way. So I've not really had side effects. Now, again, I'll go back. Not everyone will experience that. A lot of people get nausea. A lot of people find that they feel sick. A lot of people get what they called acid burps. That's not what they're called, but burps. The problem with it as a drug is you really won't know what side effects you're going to get until you try it. I started at 2.5 milligrams, which is the lowest dose, and I've gone all the way up to the equivalent of the highest dose, and I've not really changed my side effects. Some people take the introductory dose of 2.5 milligrams and find that's too much, so they have to microdose. You just won't know until you try it. And there isn't really any pattern to body size, male, female, as far as I can find. So you won't know. And the other thing you read is side effects in Wegovy are a lot worse, or side effects in Mounjaro are a lot worse. And the reality is they're both the same. They both have side effects. Some people will get side effects in Wegovy and not on Mounjaro. Some people will get side effects in Mounjaro but not Wegovy. So you won't know. The one thing I would say is if you're thinking about taking it up, Wegovy is a lot cheaper. It's slightly less effective, but only slightly. It's a lot cheaper. If you're going to try something, I don't know, maybe try Wegovy first because it's so much cheaper. Don't forget, if you haven't tried it, as I said before, and you're looking for a supplier, I use MedExpress. In the description or on a pinned comment, you'll find an email you can send me. I'll give you my referral code for £40 off your first order. If you're finding this video interesting or useful, then don't forget to smash the like button. It really helps. And if you're not a subscriber, if you want to follow my journey or see some of my climbing videos, then click subscribe. We recently hit 15,000 subscribers, which is fantastic. But let's go for 20. So that was my side effects. Other effects have been quite interesting. A big worry I had because of my size was if I lose as much weight as I think it's possible to lose weight, I'm going to have a lot of loose skin. To be honest, bit of disclaimer, if you're easily put off, there's some images coming that you might not want to see. So if you're a bit squeamish, you might want to skip ahead. On the subject of loose skin, I have some loose skin, particularly under here, some around my belly. I have, it turns out, something that I'd never heard of until I was recently reading a Dungeon Crawler Carol book. I have something called a fupa, maybe look it up. And I have some loose skin around my thighs. I don't have anywhere near as much loose skin as I thought I had, or as I deserve to have when I consider the size difference. I don't really know why. Since I've been researching loose skin, there's a lot of misinformation out there about creams and stuff. Hydration seems to be the key. The biggest piece of advice I've seen about loose skin is avoiding it. So by not losing as much weight so fast. So that's going to be counter to what a lot of people want to do. But the slower you lose weight, the easier your skin finds to adapt. What I would say is there's a lot of evidence to suggest that intermittent fasting helps with loose skin. You go into something, depending on your pattern of intermittent fasting, it's possible to activate something called autophagy. And autophagy is a process that rebuilds cells, and there's a suggestion that autophagy will help improve loose skin, let's say. So I think probably the fact that I've done intermittent fasting throughout most of this time has helped my loose skin. But to be honest, I have some loose skin. It's a bit unsightly, but it's not horrific, and I'm more than happy with that as a payoff from how much better I feel. The last side effect I've had hasn't appeared till recently, and I did a video about it recently, and that's that I found my ears constantly as if I was underwater. Having looked into it, it seems that it's most likely to be something called patulous eustachian tubes disease, problem anyway. Basically what it is it's where what I would have called your sinuses, the tube that allows the pressure in the inner ear to rebalance. Most people that have a problem with that have a problem because it's blocked, and therefore it can't equalize the pressure. What I have is something that can happen if you lose a lot of weight quickly, and what happens is you're losing some of the supportive tissue around the eustachian tube, and it stays open too much. Right now, for example, when I'm speaking, all I can hear is, particularly in this ear, my breathing and my voice in my head. So it's really annoying. There seems to be nothing to be done about it. There's a hope that after a while my body will start equalizing, and some of the collagen and fat will build up around my eustachian tube. But again, it's so much easier to deal with than being the weight I was. A bigger impact I've had is how often I've had to change my wardrobe. When I first started this, I could barely squeeze into trousers that were a 50-inch waist, and they were hard to get. My climbing t-shirts or my t-shirts were triple XL, and they were tight. I could not find a suit to save myself. Over the period, I've had to change wardrobes 3, maybe 4 times. I'm currently in 36-inch trousers, which I haven't been since I was in my 20s, and my t-shirts are large, and some of those are actually a bit baggy. So that's been a bit of an issue. The way I've dealt with it is I haven't bought a lot of clothes where I had to change trousers or t-shirts. I got 1, 2, and I didn't spend a lot of money. I'm only just getting to the stage now where I'm trusting that if I buy something, it'll last for a while. But it's a fantastic problem to have. I also find walking has changed. I didn't realise until now how bad I was at walking. I thought I was okay at walking, other than it hurt my knees a bit. But I find I had no idea how slowly I walked until now. I was obviously like some lumbering beast, whereas now I walk probably, some people say, really, really quickly, and I'm enjoying it. Now, I haven't got into the habit of walking as much. I live in Scotland, the weather's terrible, but I do plan to introduce that. I might even consider getting back into running, which I loved. But walking has been a game changer, and my knees just feel so much better. They're not perfect when I'm climbing. Sometimes they hurt when I come down from the wall, from a high. Sometimes they hurt. My knees used to hurt if I got up off the sofa. So that's been a massive difference. But the main improvement has been my climbing. Now, climbing was, as I've said, my main motivator for losing weight. And I found that now being 2/3 of the weight I was last year, climbing is a totally different sport. I'm enjoying it so much more. There are moves I can make now that I couldn't make. There's a thing called a slab climb, which before I just physically could not do slab climbs. Now I actually enjoy them. Tiny crimps, which were my nemesis. I could never hold my weight on my fingertips. Now I can actually hold my weight plus. I couldn't do pull-ups. Now I can do 3 pull-ups. So climbing has transformed. And again, since it was my main reason for starting Mounjaro, it's been an absolute life changer, and I'm loving my climbing now. I recently did a competition that 2 years ago I managed to climb 4 climbs in, and this year I managed 10. It's been a transformation. So what are the results? Just before I started Mounjaro, I was at 314 pounds. That's 142 kilos. To now, at my lowest, it's kind of fluctuating right now, but the lowest I hit was 205 pounds or 91 kilos. That's a loss of 113 pounds, 8 stone for people in the UK, or over 50 kilos. Huge, incredible. That's over 1/3 of my body weight. My waist has gone down from 53 inches to 38. That's 15 inches or over 38 centimetres I've lost from around my waist. But the numbers are only part of the story. If I look at the photographs, here are some before or after photographs. Again, if you're a bit queasy, skip through. Some of them I'm only in my shorts. I created this image for one of my recent results videos, and I did a bit of jiggery pokery with Photoshop to put old me beside new me, and I don't recognise myself from a year ago. I look at that photograph and I can't believe I was that size, but you can see the difference yourself. But the main difference is how I feel. I feel like I've got a new lease of life. I feel so much more energetic. I feel fitter, healthier. I can climb now 3, 4, 5 times a week, and I can climb harder for longer. As I said, I can walk. Someone commented the other week there when I was in Costa, I now spring out of chairs where I used to be like a lumbering Hulk trying to drag my ass up off the chair. I feel like a new me. I can't stress enough the difference it's made in a year. So, do I have any regrets? I guess it would be wrong of me to say anything other than I regret ever letting myself get into the situation I got into. I don't know why I got there, but there's nothing I can do about it. Other than that, the only regret I have is that I didn't find it sooner. I have absolutely no regrets about starting Mounjaro because it's literally changed my life. So should you start taking it? I'll tell you what I tell everyone. If you need to lose a few pounds, no. If you put on a bit of weight and you need to try and do it and you haven't really tried anything, no. If you have not tried losing weight traditional ways, then no. I think one of the problems that a lot of people have with the likes of Mounjaro is there are too many people who are using it for those short-term gains. I've got a wedding coming up and I need to get into. It's not designed for that. If, however, you've struggled with weight for a long time, if for a lot of your life you've been unhealthily overweight, if, for example, your weight is debilitating you or threatening your life, then all I would say to you is give it a try. it works. But obviously, if you haven't tried traditional means, try traditional means. Plenty of people manage to lose weight normally and keep it off. But if you struggle with it, then honestly, I cannot see any reason why someone wouldn't try it. The difference it can make, that there are risks, sure. But the risks to being, it's like a 43 BMI, the risk to having a BMI that high vastly outweigh the risks to taking Mounjaro. So don't take it as the lazy way out if you haven't tried anything. But if you've tried, if you've struggled, or if you're unhealthy, or if you're worried about your health, then honestly, I can't see why people wouldn't. I can't see why people wouldn't. I really can't understand why the NHS don't get that if they started offering this to people that were obese, then it would probably, the amount of money it would save in the NHS in the long run due to obesity related issues would vastly outweigh the cost as far as I'm concerned. So what's next for me? What's next for me is I got a DEXA scan recently, and what it showed is I still have quite a lot of visceral fat. Although I don't have much subcutaneous fat, the visceral fat is the fat that's in and around your organs. That's actually the more unhealthy fat, and I still have quite a bit of that. There's a rough measurement you can do where you measure your waist and it should be less than half your height. Mine isn't. I measure my waist, I'm still just over my height, and that's an indication of too much belly fat, and if it's not subcutaneous, it's visceral. So I need to do something about that, and if I'm going to do that, I need to maintain what I'm doing food wise and stay on Mounjaro for a wee bit longer, but increase some of the stuff I'm doing in terms of exercise. So for me, that involves some more strength training. I'd be lying if I said I haven't lost some muscle mass from all the areas really that I don't use when I'm climbing. So I'd like to build that up, because from a health perspective, that would be useful. I don't have any problems with my bone density, and I don't have any problems with my muscle mass generally, but some of the areas that don't really balance with some of the parts I do have muscle. So I need to do some work on that. And what I'm going to do basically is a bit more aerobic exercise, walking, maybe cycling, and a bit more strength training in parts of my body that I don't use when I'm climbing. Something like P90X, which I've been threatening to do for a while, and I really need to get started. I've got a few weeks before the end of the year. I want to be up and running by the end of the year with that. But other than that, I intend to keep going with Mounjaro for the time being until I get that visceral fat level down, and then I'll do another DEXA scan, and then my plan will be to start tapering. I'm not coming off. There's a huge debate about Mounjaro and the like, that as soon as you come off it, you'll put your weight back on. It's a bit of scaremongering, and I have no doubt that a large percentage of people do that. I'll go back to my view, which is if you are sedentary and don't change your lifestyle and lose all your weight with Mounjaro, when you come off, it'll go back on, for sure. In my view, in my case, what I think is, because I put weight on so slowly over the period of time, and I'm now experiencing life being pretty much the same weight I was in my 30s. When I come off it, because I'm so active, because I climb 3, now maybe 4 times a week, as soon as I start to put weight back on, I'll notice and do something about it really quickly. So I'm confident that as long as I come off it slowly, I'll be able to not only come off it, but also keep the weight off. Now, if you're on it and you're thinking, why do I need to come off it? You don't. There's a lot of people that stay on Mounjaro or the likes, indefinitely. They get their dose down to a level that they can sustain their weight, and they stay on it. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I just don't want to do that. I want to come off it. I want to, but slowly. My plan is I'm going to give myself at least 6 months to come off it. And if there's any issues, then I'll extend that. This has made too big a difference to my life to just give up. But I am confident I will be able to come off it. I am confident that I'll be able to keep it off. Other than that, I plan to enjoy my life. My life has changed dramatically over the last year, and all I can do now is enjoy it. If you've made it to the end of this video, firstly, thanks, you're a trooper. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed it, don't forget to smash that like button. It really helps the channel. If if you want to follow my journey, or if you're interested in some of my climbing content, then, and you're not a subscriber, then feel free to subscribe. As I said, we're at 15,000 subscribers, and I'm really keen to see if we can get to 20. Thanks for if you're one of my subscribers and you're watching, thanks for your continued support. It's you that keeps me coming back making these videos, so thanks for watching. I've been Gordon, FatOldClimber. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.